Hey guys, what's going on? So yesterday we got some potentially very exciting news regarding Gotham Knights. We got the potential release window for the game, and I just want to emphasize that as exciting as this is, that we could possibly be getting a summer release date for Gotham Knights of this year, I still want to just emphasize that let's, practice caution with the excitement. Let's not get too hyped about this because there still is a very good chance that it will release fall this year as opposed to summer. So just bear with me while I ramble through this situation very quickly, and then I'll give you my thoughts on why I actually think that it's fairly realistic that we could be seeing a summer release date for this game as opposed to a fall one, as I've been speculating for a while now. So basically, last year we got announcements for both Gotham Knights and Hogwarts Legacy, and we were told that they would both be releasing this year in 2021. And at the time, I thought, okay, so they'll release Hogwarts Legacy in the summer and Gotham Knights in the fall. And then earlier this year, they announced that Hogwarts Legacy is actually going to be delayed until 2022. My assumption with that was, okay, so then if Gotham Knights was not already the planned fall release date for Warner Brothers games this year, it is now. If it was planned for summer, they're going to push it back to fall. And the reason that I thought that this would be the case is because fall generally is a really good time to release AAA games. It's around the holiday season. It's when people have some time off. They have extra money in their pocket. And so if your game is front and center and it's the talk of the town at the moment, then it's just simply a great time to release your game. The difficulty with that is that so many AAA games release around that time that then there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of other games that you're competing with, and that could actually be a difficulty for the Gotham Knights game, again, because it isn't a full Batman game, it's a game about his sidekicks. So that could actually make it even more difficult to sell this game if it's trying to release alongside a ton of other proven IPs that people are excited for and planning on buying instead. So while it definitely is a good time in general to release AAA games, and I think the game is going to sell pretty well regardless of when it releases, I also think that might be putting it into some pretty unfair competition. And we've even seen with big AAA games in this last year with The Last of Us Part 2, and even recently with Spider-Man PS4, for example, releasing closer to a summer release date in early September rather than a later fall release date or something. That just because a game doesn't release around the holiday season doesn't mean that it can't still be a big deal when the holiday season comes around. You even look at Warner Brothers games in general. Shadow of War released in August. Arkham Knight, yes, it was delayed, but it was released in the summer and it still did incredibly well. Now, the trade-off with Gotham Knights is, again, that I do think that up front it might have a harder time hitting those same records that games like Spider-Man PS4 have, but I think that over time, through word of mouth, through reviews and everything, this game could garner just as much success as those other games. I, again, just think it's going to be very dependent upon how reviews look at this game and how word of mouth spreads. And if people enjoy playing this with their friends, for example, if this is a fun multiplayer experience and people get all their friends to buy the game, then that is going to be very pivotal in shaping this game's success. But you're probably sick of hearing me ramble my thoughts about all that before I've even given you the news of this video, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. So yesterday, we started seeing some retailers list this game with the projected release date of July 31st, 2021. And this is less of a projected release date and more of a placeholder release date. So how much does this mean exactly? Well, I'd say that it probably brings us to a 45% to 50% chance that this game will release in summer. Again, there's a lot of variables attached to this potential release date that I'd like to talk about. However, it does mean that there is the possibility that the planned release date for this game is summer of this year, and that's the time frame that they are giving these retailers, is that the game will likely be out by July. And so then they would put a placeholder release date of July 31st. It's the last day of the month, so that then it gives people a rough time frame of when they can expect the game. Now, there's a few possibilities that could make this null and void. The first is that this is just a projected release date by whatever retailer this is, that they don't really have the information on when the game's going to release, but they're just making their best prediction. Or there's also the possibility that this is Hogwarts Legacy, that this was the plan before Hogwarts Legacy got delayed, and that now they will push Gotham Knights back further in the year. There's even the chance that if they come out and announce the game is releasing mid-July, even after that, they could still come out and delay it like Cyberpunk. So again, I just really want to emphasize nothing is set in stone, and even with this July 31st date, it is literally just a placeholder date, meaning that that is when retailers have sort of been informed that the game will probably be releasing. So you may be wondering, well, if nothing is set in stone, then why are you even covering this? Well, the reason is that not only is this noteworthy in the fact that it does give us a potential release window for this game, but as I've been thinking about it, I do think that a summer release window is actually potentially just as likely as a fall release release window. And from a marketing standpoint, it might be just as smart or even smarter to release the game in the summer rather than the fall. Now, I've already talked all about how this game could have some pretty stiff competition if they tried to release it alongside all of the other big AAA games around the holiday season. And by sort of moving it back further into the summer, that would remove a lot of that competition. And not only that, but it would give them a lot of time to market this game post-release. And even though they've said that this isn't a games as a service, it's not a live service game, I do think that there's going to be a lot of drive to try and keep up the longevity of this game. I don't know exactly how they're going to do that, but I even look at what they could do with the season pass. They could introduce new characters, they could introduce new teams, they could let you play as the Gotham City Sirens or the Teen Titans or the Birds of Prey. There are so many different characters that they could introduce into gameplay. They could add a new villain quest every month. They could say, okay, the game launches in July. In August, we're adding Two-Face. In September, we're adding Bane, etc. And think about this. What if they added Batman content, whether it be a prequel or whether in the base game he comes back and then they do content afterward, after the main story where you get to play as Batman. And if they released that around December, that would push a lot of units of the game on its own. If they said, we have 5 hours of Batman content now, you can still play multiplayer with the Bat family, but this is, we've introduced Batman to the open world, we've given him his own mini story that you can play through, that would also be a huge selling point for the game. We also have to consider that they want to leave room for Rocksteady to start marketing their Suicide Squad game, and you don't want to necessarily be marketing the Suicide Squad game while you're simultaneously pumping out post-launch content for Gotham Knights. And think about this, for all we know, Suicide Squad could also be planned for a summer release date next year. They could be planning to release Suicide Squad in June 2022 as opposed to September or November 2022. Again, none of this is confirmed, and there's still a very good chance that we will not be seeing either of these games until fall of their respective years. But with that retailer listing Gotham Knights for a summer release date as their placeholder, it actually does make a lot of sense, especially, again, once we start considering when Suicide Squad could release or when they want to start marketing it. And I think it would be a perfect trade-off if the last piece of Gotham Knights DLC released in December, and then later that year at the Game Awards, they showed their next trailer for Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. I think that would be a perfect trade-off. Now, one other thing that I would like to potentially let you consider is this release window from the game developer perspective. Now, we initially had rumors that this game was supposed to launch last year, 2020, in the fall, and that it was internally delayed. So the game was supposed to release last year, and then because of the pandemic, they probably had to slow down on development a little bit, and it took them a little bit longer to finish up the game. But if the game is pretty much done, and all that they're really doing at this point is just fixing some of the smaller bugs in the game that they could do in post-launch patches anyway, then there's not really a point in waiting or sitting around. And yes, there's always improvements that you can make to a game, but again, if the game itself is pretty much complete and all that's left is stuff that could be fixed post-launch anyway, then yeah, I really don't see why you would just wait around. Hopefully, if this is true, this has given Warner Brothers Games Montreal time to really refine this game and polish it up and make it an incredible experience. But again, I think that there's a good chance that if they were on track to release it last year, they have probably been developing it for even longer than they originally intended to. And there just comes a point where there's really no point in keeping it under wraps, and it's just time to release it. And especially if they want to maximize profits on both the PS5 and PS4 and Series X and Xbox One, I think that there would be incentive to release it earlier rather than later. For example, for me, I still have not been able to get my hands on a next generation console, and so if Gotham Knights released today, I would be getting it on either my Xbox One or my PS4. If I get it later in the year, in fall, then who knows, maybe I'll have a next-gen console by then, and I'll get it for PS5 or Series X. So if they want to maximize profits on both consoles, I do think that there is a potential incentive to release it earlier rather than later. And again, I really do think that this game is going to sell very dependently upon word of mouth. Again, me going to my friends and saying, dude, Gotham Knights, you gotta play it with me. Let's team up, let's do this mission together. and getting my friends to buy the game. I also think that reviews are going to play a huge factor in that. If IGN comes out with a 6 out of 10 review and says Gotham Knights has its moments, but it never quite lives up to the rock-steady Batman games, then that's going to hurt the sales immensely. But if they come out with a 9.6 out of 10 and say this is the best Gotham City experience ever, it stands on the shoulders of the best Batman games ever and only improves upon them, then that is going to turn a lot of heads. And really, I do think they're hitting all the right notes in regards to making this game a success, but then it's just going to be dependent upon if they stick the landing and how it's received by the fans. So basically, I'm going to boil this all down to the fact that I understand the incentive or the appeal of releasing this game in summer, and having seen that that's when retailers are expecting to ship the game, I do think that there is a pretty solid chance. Again, I think we're probably at a 50-50% in regards to whether this is going to be a mid-summer release or a late fall release for this year. And what we're going to have to watch for is when the marketing kicks back up. Warner Brothers Games generally markets their games a few months prior to their release. So if by next month we start getting a lot of Gotham Knights content, then I would expect a summer release date. If, you know, we're getting to March, April, May, June, and we still haven't seen anything, then we can safely expect that it will release later in the year. But anyways, thanks you guys so much for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you liked the video. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below, and we'll see you guys in the next one.